Welcome back to the Heinrich Dialogue 2021, live from Stormen Library, downtown Bude. I'm still Andreas Raspotnik, your host, and a very strong supporter of Bude Glimt. Or was it Tromsø Idrettslag? I'm not sure. Anyhow, our next session will focus on the entire European Arctic, stretching from Bude here to northwest Russia. For people having followed the Heinrich Dialogue over the past few years, I guess you're well aware of the BIN project, the Business Index North project. Want to know more about the Business Index North project and this year's findings on the sustainability in the Arctic regions? Then let's first watch their video together and afterwards welcome Björn Olsen, professor at New University Business School, who will be our moderator for the very next session on the Business Index North project. Film up.
The main goal of our report is to highlight business opportunities and development challenges in the Arctic. There is a big question we keep in mind. Is economic development in the Arctic socially sustainable? In the latest report, we investigate if and how the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda can be used to analyze and measure socio-economic and business development in the Arctic regions.
Why should we worry? We observe that in the BIN area, despite fewer young people, there is a 100 billion euro industry sector who will need a workforce in the future. Despite the pandemic, many of these industries have done well throughout the last year because of new technology and new export opportunities.
People of the North create the future of the Arctic. But why should we worry? The regions of North Sweden, Norway and Finland have a population aging, and the growth is averaging around 0%, which is much lower than the country averages. The population in the northwest Russia in the Arctic has declined profoundly. The trends demonstrate that the population of young adults and youth has decreased by 7% in the last 10 years. The outmigration of young adults and young professionals creates a real challenge for social sustainability of the region.
BIN research has uncovered a growing number of very innovative and successful companies with their origin in the Arctic, their products framed by the Arctic and selling to the world. All companies are terrific examples of the opportunities for value creation in the Arctic when you marry knowledge with raw materials and with export markets.
Welcome to this session on Arctic resilience. The session is hosted by the Business Index North, the BIN partnership. The BIN partnership is a cooperation between researchers in Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia, soon to be extended to Iceland, USA and Canada. A cooperation that has been going on for 6 years now. The purpose of the BIN project is to provide a recurring knowledge-based information tool for stakeholders such as businesses, academics, governments, regional authorities, as well as media in the Arctic states. The focus on this year's BIN report due in the summer of 2021 is on Arctic resilience. The word resilience is originated from Latin, meaning the ability to bounce back. The question is, does the Arctic have the capacity to bounce back when meeting changing challenges? And what are the best way forward to ensure that? First in this session, Alan Bulvåg and André Minet will give you some insight into some important indicators for resilience in the Arctic. Then we will have a panel discussion discussing the right medicine to ensure or improve Arctic resilience. But stay put until the end, because then we will have a quiz with fantastic prizes for those who win. Then I give the stage to André Minejev and Alan Bulvåg. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Björn Olsen. Dear audience, it's a great honor for us to share preliminary results of the 5th annual report in the project Business Index North. The main theme of the report is resilience of the Arctic regions. Before presenting the results, I want to say huge thank you very much to all the partners in the BIN project. We have implementing partners who are Arctic-based institutions and universities, and we are very happy to have strong strategic and funding partners who provide institutional and financial support to the project. When it comes to resilience, Professor Björn Olsen told us about the strategic approach to this term, but at the operational level, resilience of Arctic regions is about measurement of 5 important capacities, which are demographic, economic capacity, community capacity, as well as knowledge and societal capacity. Today, we are going to highlight some results about demographic and economic capacity. This is the geographic area where we have applied the resilience analytical framework so far. So-called BIN area, this includes northern territories of Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Russia, up to Yamal-Nenets. BIN area is a huge territory and quite a big economy. In total, value creation of the BIN area is about 138 billion euro. This is comparable to size of value creations of countries like Kuwait, New Zealand, Algeria, Kazakhstan. Also, in terms of population, this area is quite big. There are 5.5 million people, 5.2 million people living there. The majority lives on the Russian part. This area has a huge development potential, but there are also serious contradictions. Now I invite Alan Bulvåg, who is director of the BIN project, to talk a bit more about these opportunities and contradictions. Please, Alan.
Thank you very much. I will, before the panel start working, just give you a few of our concerns. First of all, in the Arctic area, we observe a very strong business growth activity, mostly from our minerals and our nature production of food, and also from our energy production. This creates many opportunities, and many companies have come into the region, and they are doing quite well. On the same time, we don't see any response in the society when it comes to the number of people and number of workers in the societies. This is a great concern. This has also now come into the working area where the job market has not grown in the speed that we see in the rest of the Arctic regions. This happens both in Russia and in north of Norway, Sweden, and Finland, which is causing great concern. But you will have a great divide between the south and the north when it comes to job creation. This will make the Arctic less attractive over time. So we are looking very much for reasons and remedies for this. The consequence of these two mechanisms have caused a very serious gap in the Arctic, where about half the people live in communities which have societal resilience in the way that people both have more children born there than deaths, and there is an in-migration. The other half of the Arctic is cities and municipalities where there are neither enough kids or people coming into the region to subside the system of the society. They are at great risk for actually being very, very sidetracked in the development of the Arctic. This is something which we need much more knowledge about. The same is the situation in the business life. We have a thriving university sector, but in the private sector we lack workers for creating new ideas into value. In the Arctic, this is a severe gap we need to address heavily. And all of this make us very concerned. There's a huge potential, and there is mostly created businesses who require few people. There is a gap between rural cities and the cities. There is a lowering share of working age people. There's a lack of qualified workplaces and no lack of applicants for the jobs if they are offered. And there's a low share of knowledge-based economy basically all over the Arctic. This is topics we need to fix in order to have a resilient Arctic. So, Bjørn, let the panel start.
Thank you. To discuss the Arctic region's ability to bounce back, to be resilient, we have a very competent panel. Welcome to Eirik Sivertsen, member of the Norwegian Parliament and head of the delegation for Arctic cooperation, on screen from Oslo. Welcome, Eirik.
Thank you.
Also, we have Mari Sundli Tveit, Chief Executive for Research Council of Norway, also on screen from Oslo. Welcome to you, and good to see you again, Marit.
Very good to see you.
And here in Bodø, Anders Oskal, the Secretary General of the Association of World Reindeer Herders and the Executive Director of International Center for Reindeer Husbandry. Welcome. Also welcome to Merete Norheim, CEO at Bodø Næringsforum, also live here in Bodø. I will ask each of you a starting question and give you 2 to 3 minutes to reply, and then we move over to a general discussion among the panel participants. Starting with Eirik Sivertsen. It appears that the value creation potential in the Arctic is enormous. However, there are some challenges related to the composition of both people and businesses in the Arctic, at least in some areas. It does not seem like the old political medicine has resulted in any cure. What is your view on the situation, and what new political medicine would you prescribe, Eirik?
Well, thank you for the question, Bjørn. I think I will have three points. Starting by saying that the political medicine we are using today, maybe it's not curing the problem, but it's still suiting some of the symptoms we see. But what's happening in the Arctic and in the high north, as we saw described now in a few slides, I think this is also our global trends. But as any other global trend, it hits the Arctic first and maybe hardest. This is about urbanization, it's about digitalization, and it's about what is driving the growth in the economy. It's more knowledge-based and knowledge-intensive. So when we are looking into urbanization, we know that in 2007, 2008, for the first time in human history, more than half of the globe's people were living in cities. This will continue to develop in that direction, and by 2100, the UN says that more than 3/4 of the Earth's population will be living in cities. Some researchers say that even 80% of the people at the Earth will be living in just 600 cities. And if you apply this on a Norwegian scale, that will mean that 80% of Norway's people will be living just in 4 or maybe 5 cities. So to be short, Bjørn, I think that the medicine we should prescribe will be to long-term and investments in building competitive cities. Because if you don't do that, people will move out of the Arctic, and the Arctic most valuable resource is the people living there. So we have to invest in infrastructure in a few cities, and especially I think we have to invest in knowledge, and that means investing in universities on a long-term basis, so we can be competitive in what's driving the growth in the economy, namely more knowledge-based industries.
Thank you, Erik. Then we move to Mari Sundli-Tveit. It goes without saying that the future development of the Arctic should be knowledge-based, and that the capacity to innovate is a key factor to be able to adapt and transform. To be resilient, you need to innovate. However, the data shows that the Arctic region, compared with other parts of the Arctic countries, the educational level is substantially lower. There is a smaller proportion of R&D workers in the private sector, and the proportion of intellectual property rights is substantially lower. What is your view on this development, and what could be done? What is the Research Councils of Norway's medicine to increase the innovation capacity in the Arctic, and by doing so, increase resilience?
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive and challenging question. Let me start by saying that obviously the High North is very special. It's very special in the regional, Norwegian and global perspective. And yes, you're pointing to very many of the challenges that we have, but there are also so many opportunities lying in the future for this region. And I think we will all agree in this panel that knowledge, research, innovation will be key to take out the potential from those opportunities. So looking at the ground global challenges, the climate change, you have in the High North lots of natural resources. We have geopolitical conditions that indicate, all these indicate that we need to have special attention in the High North, also for the Research Council. So we need a very ambitious and comprehensive strategy to develop research and innovation that supports sustainable management, social development, and business development. These the three dimensions of sustainability, if you will, they need to go hand in hand. So obviously in the Research Council, we want the entire Norway and also the international research community to participate in research in and for the North. And we also have our own High North strategy, which is called Research and Innovation in and for the North. And this clearly shows and points to the challenges and the opportunities that we consider most important in the coming years for the High North. And as you said very clearly, knowledge and expertise, and Eirik also said it, it's necessary. It's absolutely crucial for business development, for value creation, for research management, and for social development. So we need to succeed in all these dimensions. So this also means that we need to, we have a separate High North strategy, but it's also very deeply rooted and goes also through the breadth of all our portfolios in the Research Council. And also it's a very strong part of the strategy in the international efforts that we make. So if just have maybe four, you asked for the medicine. Yes. And I'm not sure that I don't think it's a sort of very, very short and very intense and efficient cure, but we have some things that we would like to put our efforts. And one is to emphasize obviously the perspectives and meet the research and knowledge needs of and in the High North. This means that the way that we put together our calls, for example, needs to take those dimensions into account, also related to public administration, social development, and business. Also, we need efforts to stimulate innovation. And we also need application of new instruments to trigger more R&D in the North. So this is new ways of thinking and new ways of of putting this together. Also, we need to mobilize the R&D communities in the North, really mobilize the R&D communities. They need to take leading roles in international research collaboration in relevant areas, and also strengthen the High North competence or knowledge development in the international cooperation. And as part of this, we really need to mobilize the business sector even more than we do today. So, yeah, there are several different medicines in the in the package that we will have to apply.
Thank you, Mari, and thank you for a very comprehensive bottle of with different types of medicine. We will most certainly need that. I will then move to Anders Oskal. A lot of Arctic communities appear to lose their capacities for resilience. Part of the reason for this might be a colonial approach to value creation, where the most favorable business model most often developed outside the Arctic are related to exploitation of natural resources. We have argued for the importance of formal education and research-based knowledge to create a more resilient societies in the Arctic. But what about local knowledge? From the indigenous perspective, what is the right way forward to create resilience in the Arctic? What medicine would you prescribe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to organizers for inviting. My point of departure is, of course, that of indigenous peoples, but more specifically, the nomadic indigenous peoples of the Arctic, the reindeer herding peoples, that are spread across 3 continents, 10 states in the north, 24 different indigenous groups. And the Arctic is changing very rapidly in ways unprecedented in the histories, the long histories of our peoples. And change, in principle, of course, means opportunities as well as challenges. When it comes to challenges, we are in a difficult position in that climate change is driving a lot of other changes. There's the land use change challenge that we have, the fragmentation of our traditional pasture lands. And those who are most dependent on nature are also quickly most vulnerable when that nature is changing. But what about the opportunities? Well, there are opportunities, but our communities are usually not in a very good position to exploit them, to make use of the changing Arctic in ways meaningful to us, because we have to spend so much time and energy on the negatives. And but for us to be able to avoid being transformed in a negative way, for instance, losing the nomadic way of life, we have to have a development based on our own terms. And what kind of development could that be? I think it's a central challenge to any society, any civilization, to use your own knowledge to develop your communities, your societies. And in that regard, we of course have a knowledge base that is a knowledge system which is very old, and that should be also part of the foundation for building our resilience into the future. Part of that heritage has been lost due to assimilation and its consequences, past and present. But we need to look ahead, and there are some possibilities to have this type of development. One example could be food, an area which we are working much on. We have very special food resources in the north. There is, of course, focusing on institution building the capacities of indigenous people's communities. We started work on resilience in 2001. In 2004 with the Arctic Climate Impact Assessment. We've just this January had a joint leadership training course together with Harvard Kennedy School to build the competence of our youth, our emerging leaders, on resilience, on how to turn challenges around to opportunities. And in 2010, we started to think about the potential, together with Stockholm Resilience Center, to build an Arctic Resilience Center. So, but those are a few of the things we would like to see. Active societies, knowledge building for our youth across the Arctic. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. Then to Merete Nordheim. As the CEO of Bodø Næringsforum, a member organization for businesses in Bodø, you are the voice of the business community in Bodø, the second largest city in the Norwegian Arctic. The Arctic cities are important both as job creators and for keeping the young people in the Arctic. Our numbers indicate that it is increasingly so. My question is, what is the right medicine to ensure that cities become vibrant growth machines for the whole Arctic? And what's the importance of culture?
I'll be so bold and say that I'm a part of the solution and I'm a part of the medicine, because I'm this mythical person from the south living in the north. I'm a woman, I'm 33, and I'm childless. We need more of people like me in the north to build the north. And before coming here to Bodø, I was living in Longyearbyen, and before that I was living in Moscow. And what's important for me to have a good life in a city is the part of the culture. I want to live an urban life everywhere, depending on where in the north. And it's so important for me and people like me to meet one another. And then culture is actually the glue for meeting people. And I was so lucky to join the people who went down to Brussels when we were putting forward our bid for ECOC 2024. And the county mayor, Thomas Norvoll, said it so well. We have a lot of things to live off, but we have to have something to live for. And their culture. So when it comes to politics, depending on the party, you can say that culture is a soft investment. But I mean that this is a soft investment which will make hard ones, other hard investments in the future. So culture is the medicine for the growth in the north.
Thank you very much. I see the time is flying. We have a couple of minutes left. Erik, you and also others had talked about the cities. Should we try to close the growing gap between cities and rural areas? Or should we just abandon the rural areas in favor of the city to save the sinking ship? Erik?
Well, I don't think we should abandon the rural areas, but I think we need to acknowledge that people moving to the cities is a global trend. It has lasted for several thousand years since we invented the concept of cities, and it will continue to grow. That will also be a strength for the areas surrounding the cities. But in a global competition, we need to close the gap between the Arctic cities and major cities in other parts of the world. So we have to invest in strengthening our cities as an alternative to the youth coming from the north. Please go out in the world, get education, get experience from other fields, but come back to the major cities in the Arctic so we can be competitive. Because we need to also make values for the future, and they will be more dependent on education, on innovations, on competence in the future than in the past. So we have to strengthen cities in a long-term commitment from public investments.
Thank you very much. I see from the clock that we have 6 seconds left. And I've been strictly ordered to keep the time. So I have a ton of questions. But thank you very much to the panel for a very interesting debate. And I hope to see you again soon. So have a fantastic day, all of you. Thank you.
Tusen takk, Bjørn. It's not my fault when it comes to the timing. It's the organizer's fault. I'm only executing that part. We'll take a quick 5 minutes break now, which we need to set the stage for the high-nav scenarios and our 2 moderators. Before that, between 11 and 12, and for everybody interested in the BIN project, you will have the chance to watch a BIN-related video online in our Expo option. Watch that video. There's a poll afterwards, and you can win some true Arctic products from 11 to 12 during our lunch break. But now, quick 5 minutes break, and then we're back.